Hey guys, Steve in Utah here. Today, a total change of pace. We're in the kitchen and gonna do some cooking. The garden is kicking out gobs of jalapeno peppers, so it's time to make my favorite hot sauce. I think it's the world's best hot sauce. I call it the Jalapeño Dream sauce. Okay, so here's the basic recipe. It'd be 1 pound of jalapenos, one bulk of garlic, that's about 12 cloves, a third cup of oil, and salt. The idea here is we're going to take the jalapenos, fire roast them and blister the skins. Then we'll sweat them and remove the skins. This is the same technique they use for hatch peppers, as are very popular here in the Southwest in New Mexico. The garlic is lightly toasted and added to the blender. As we turn this into a slurry and start to add the oil, with a high-speed blender, it becomes an emulsion and actually has a mayonnaise-like consistency that makes it so smooth and creamy. Okay, first of all, the jalapenos. In our garden, as some of the peppers mature, they become red in color. They have the same flavor, but when we blend the red and green, we get kind of an off color. So I've separated them into my red peppers and my green peppers just to have that nice flavor and color consistency. So here we have 1 pound of the green jalapeno peppers. We're going to go ahead and lightly cover these with oil. This is not the oil included in the 1/3 cup. This just basically gives them a nice coating, and they hold salt and will help them blister. So a light spritz of oil. And I'm using canola oil for this. I am a big fan of olive oil, but I've tried that and was warned against it. Believe it or not, the flavor of this thing is so pure and so delicate that the olive oil takes away from it. You don't want to use olive oil. The other problem with olive oil, it has a low flash point. I think about 350, 370 degrees. At that particular point, it starts to smoke. Canola oil for something like this, where we're cooking at high heat, is absolutely the way to go. Okay, a nice light coating with the oil, and then I just use some good kosher salt, just a little pinch of that. We're going to toss this and set it on our pan. We're going to range them out and pop them into the broiler. Okay, here we are ready to go into the broiler. We put our oven rack on high. This is a top broiler. And we're going to start blistering them. I found that about 4 to 5 minutes per side, rotating them 4 times in the process. Okay, we're looking better. We're going to go ahead and rotate these peppers a quarter turn, put them back in the oven for a little less time, possibly 4 minutes this time, and repeat the process 3 more times until it's completely blistered on all sides. So while the jalapenos are blistering, we're going to start to get the garlic ready. If you guys don't already know this, garlic is easy to process if you abuse it a little bit. Simply just take your bulk, push it down, breaks into nice simple pieces. Okay. Then each of these individual cloves, if we just take a knife with a flat edge and give it a smack, you notice how easily the skin pulls off. All right, here's the jalapenos roasted on all sides as we pulled them out of the oven. As you can see, the skins are well blistered. Although they do blacken the skins, inside we still have a beautiful green flesh. We're going to discard the skins. The only thing we're after is the flesh and the seeds inside. So the key now is to take these while they're still hot and put them into a bowl. We're going to cover that bowl with press and seal, and then put a lid on top of it and let it rest. All right, well, here's our roasted garlic. I started with 2 minutes, then I rotated and did 1 minute, then I rotated again and did 30 seconds. This is about the maximum level of doneness you want the roasted garlic, where we have the roasted flavor without the burntness. You see this little edge here that did get burnt from the broiler, and that one? I'm going to cut those off and discard them. A little bit of burnt will make that flavor of burn permeate through the whole batch. The jalapenos are sweating beautifully. The garlic is done and trimmed up. We're going to let this sit for about 30 minutes and we're going to go out and run the dog. Good girl. Bring the ball. Okay, the peppers have sweated here for about 30 minutes or so. Now's the labor-intensive process. What we want to do is remove the skins, the blistered skins from the jalapenos, and just add them to the blender. At this particular point, you can determine how hot you want your sauce to be. If you remove all the seeds, the sauce will be mild. Now, my wife will tell you that my taste buds were burned out 40 years ago, but for a hot sauce, it's a very mild hot sauce. If you leave half the seeds, you'll have a moderately hot sauce. If you leave all the seeds, you'll have a reasonably hot, but not extremely hot sauce. So let me show you how that process works. I like to use a serrated knife. Simply hold the back of the pepper and scrape them forward. This is the same technique that you see with our beautiful hatch peppers from New Mexico. And we're going to discard these and just keep the green. So any way you look at it, cleaning the peppers is the most tedious process. There's a couple different techniques to use. First of all, some people just scrape, catch underneath the skin and peel it off. Obviously, the larger peppers are going to be a little easier to skin than the smaller peppers. Okay? Places where they're burnt through, actually it makes the skin adhere to the flesh. So you kind of sometimes have to cut that area out, unfortunately. There's no perfect way to blister these peppers. Okay, so we got this one pretty well done. We're going to cut the skin off. We're going to flip it over. Okay, you can slice it down the middle. And at this point, you can make the decision. We have this nice flesh on both sides, kind of like cleaning a fish. If you want to take all the seeds, some of the seeds, or none of the seeds. So that's about 2/3 of the seeds gone on this one. I vary quite a bit. Into the blender we go, and on to the next one. Hey again. So here we are ready for the final step. I have put all the peppers in the blender. You can see the jalapeno pepper flesh in here with the amount of seeds I decided to keep. Full disclosure, with that first batch of peppers that I made, they were right out of the garden and pretty moist, so they had a high water content. So after I oven roasted them, they were a little shy, so I actually made a batch and a half. So I have 1.5 pounds of peppers here, and I've upgraded to a 1/2 cup of canola oil. Okay, there's also a discussion about water. Some people never use water. Some people like to get a little bit thinner consistency. You can be the one to judge that. I found that sometimes if the peppers are a little bit dry, it's hard to get them to emulsify, and you have to work it quite a bit. So we're going to get started with the emulsification process. Okay, I have the lid with the top off. So we're going to start to get this moved, then slowly add the garlic and the oil. Let's get started. Again, these jalapenos are quite thick, and at the very beginning, they really don't want to blend. They tend to get stuck in the upper part of the blender. So I start by adding just a little bit of the oil and slowly pulsing them. See a movement out of it? Good, stir them. Make sure you don't get that caught in the blades of the blender. Starting to make some movement here. I'm going to stop and add a little bit more of the oil. And stir that in. Pulse it. Okay, now that we're starting to get it to a thick paste, I'm going to slowly start to infuse the garlic and the rest of the oil. Walk you through that process. Again, we're going to pulse it. get this moving. So now that we have all the ingredients infused, I'm going to add salt to taste. I'm going to start with just a pinch. And we're going to run this for about 5 minutes, but we want to stop and get the air bubbles out of it so we actually get circulation. If it's too thick, go ahead and drizzle in a little water. Bring up the consistency you like. Right now it's a fairly thick paste, as you can see, so I'm going to thin it out just a little bit. So here's the results of the first batch. The yield actually ended up being 2 8-ounce jars and 2 4-ounce jars. So that was 24 ounces. If you recall, I upgraded it to a 1.5 batch. By that I mean 1.5 pounds of peppers, a half a cup of canola oil, the salt, and a full bulk of garlic. I did end up adding about a half a cup of water to the blender to get it to blend well and to get the proper consistency that I want. This batch I left a little over half the seeds. So it's a medium hot sauce. It's very, very creamy and light. It just come out as a beautiful product. I like to separate the colors. That way you don't get a gray sauce. You get a deep green sauce and a deep red sauce. So pulling out all the peppers that had turned red from the garden, I have a little over 2 pounds. So this will be a double batch. 2 pounds of peppers, 2/3 of a cup of canola oil. I'm going to put 2 full bulks of garlic. I want a very garlicky product. And of course, salt and pepper to taste. I'll just show you the highlights of this one. All right, our second batch is finished, and here is the final product, the Jalapeño Dream sauce. The red batch, if you recall, was a 2-pound batch. It yielded about 32 ounces of sauce. The first batch, the green batch, was 1.5 pounds. It yielded about 24 ounces of sauce. So expect to get 16 ounces per pound. The sauce itself, I call Jalapeño Dream. When I was a kid, we had this thing called the dreamsicle. It was cream and fruit mixed together, frozen on a stick, and had this beautiful rich color, almost the same color. But the sauce is literally a dream. It is sweet, it is smoky, it is garlicky, it is flavorful, and it's creamy without any sugar and cream in them. It's amazing how the emulsification process comes together and makes such a light, fluffy, creamy sauce. So a couple of tips for you. Obviously, the larger peppers are the ones easier to process. The tedious part of it is cleaning the skins off the peppers. If you get a whole bunch of small ones, you end up with a lot of waste, a lot of frustration, a lot of time, and very little flesh. So these big giant peppers we see coming out of Mexico now, they're jalapenos, but the size of Anaheims, work really well for this sauce. Make the process go a little faster. And like anything you do, it's worth investing your time, and as you do it, you will get better at it. So again, these are wonderful for holiday gifts, for putting away. For us, we don't can them. We can a lot of things, but we don't want to add the extra heat. We simply put them in the freezer. In the refrigerator, they will last 2 to 3 weeks as long as they're covered. They really hold their life really well and don't go bad. So if you like someone, you can make them these beautiful little 4-ounce jars. If you love someone, you can give them these beautiful 8-ounce jars. Again, the sauce is a life changer for me if you like hot sauces, and the texture and the flavors just can't be overstated. Again, I'm Steve in Utah, and if you like my recipe, make some comments below, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd click that follow button below. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.